Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up? It's your girl Neek, and you're tuned in to Neek at Night. And tonight, I'm going to be talking about what went down in court today. Now, I talked to you guys earlier and told you guys how there was a witness in court who said that he seen a fight between Megan and Kelsey. He said he also seen gun flashes go off closer to Kelsey, and the prosecution, the defense would say something, then the prosecution would redirect, and then the defense would redirect, and then they would come back, and it was just a whole lot. So I'm going to try to go over my notes the best that I can to bring you guys up to speed because it was a lot. And what I found interesting was there was several of us there who were doing like media for this and keeping tabs, keeping notes, listening to every detail. And the crazy thing is you have so many people in the same exact courtroom, listening to the same exact information, and so many different people having different perceptions of how they interpreted what was said. It was a lot of going back and forth in the breaks, like with different media people, like on what they heard or how they interpreted it. Like, no, well, I feel like he said this and this is what he meant. And no, this is not what he meant. This is what he meant. So not only was things crazy in the courtroom, but outside of the courtroom, all of the people who were covering media, well, not all of them, many people were going back and forth on how they interpreted the information. Now, for me, I was more or less a fly on the wall at that time, and I'm just sitting back and listening. But it was very much interesting dialogue to see everybody go back and forth on what they heard and what they made of what they heard. Some people are like, listening to this information, I think that Kelsey did it. Listening to this information, I think that Tori did it. Listening to this information, I really don't know. I'm confused. He contradicted himself. He said one thing and then he said one thing. So it was a mess. So I'm going to go through. I kept as many notes as I could. Now, it was going fast in there. There was a lot of back and forths. There was a lot of repeats on what the defense and the prosecution was asking. There was a whole lot of back and forth, so let's get to it. Sean Kelly was the defense witness, but before we got to him coming on stage, I wrote juror 63, that's from what I recollect, was excused. So juror 63, from my notes it says 63, was excused. So the juror who made all the blogs, who had been seen on the elevator with Tory Lanez and who was seen by King Payne getting in the elevator with Tory Lanez, she was not the juror that was excused. She's still on a trial, so I just wanted to make that clear because I know that people seen that a juror was excused, so they automatically thought that it was the girl. It wasn't her. She's still on. Also, before we got into court, they wanted to stipulate and make sure that it was on the record that the gun was not registered. So the gun was not registered to Tori, Kelsey, or Megan. So they basically are playing this cat and mouse on whose gun is it. For me, for my notes, when I wrote it down right when they said it. I wrote down 63. But I could be wrong, but I wrote it down right when they said it, and I believe it was 63. I think juror 39 is the one that they had a problem with, and that's two different jurors. But again, that's what I wrote down, child. So anyway, so then they call their first witness, and it is Sean Kelly. So basically what happened was, in the canyon or in the hills or whatever, he lives on a road called Nichols Canyon Road. And when you are going up the hills to through Runyon Canyon and in the Hollywood Hills, a lot of people don't have reception. So in his particular spot on the hill, like when people, I guess, are coming up or down or whatever, it's like reception in that area. So because there's reception in that area, a lot of people stop there. So they showed a picture of his house. So it was a picture of his house, and you could see that there was a window, like two windows up top and a balcony. And then you see that there was this driveway, and then he had like a Jeep in the driveway, and then they showed where um the driver parked. And so the driver parked and pulled over in his driveway. So all of this went down directly in his driveway. So they start by asking him if he remembers the July incident. He says yes. On the night of July 2020, did you see something? He says, I was asleep. In the back of my house is a large driveway with a garage, and it's often used by people to stop and talk because there is no cell service. That night there was a lot of so then after he said that, they asked him, like, when he woke up, like, what did he hear as he was waking up? He said there was a lot of shouting. He It says there was a lot of shouting. I asked him to leave. My son opened his window and came out. So they said, that's how I wrote it, but I'm like, what? I don't know. So then they asked him to describe what he seen in the photo, because the photo that was on the screen was his house. And he was basically saying, I see my driveway, I see my house. They asked him, does he see his balcony? He says yes. He showed where his bedroom was and where the balcony was, and he basically pointed to let us know like where each thing was. So they said, can you tell us when you heard, can you tell us what you heard? Can you tell us when you heard, did you see a vehicle? He said, I did. Can you show where the vehicle was? So he showed that the vehicle was in his driveway. What did you do when you heard noise? I looked through the double windows. It was two girls arguing. What did you first observe? I observed two girls arguing. Were they by the car? Yes. Where were you standing? Where were they standing? By the car doors, and the car doors were open. So he said they were standing by the car doors and the car doors were open. What happened when you seen the two girls arguing? He said the girls started fighting. How were they fighting? They were pulling their hair and quite violent. So he said that, that they were pretty violent. It was two girls at the time. Tory Lanez and his driver was inside the vehicle. Okay. He said that Tory Lanez and his driver was inside the vehicle, and the two girls was outside of the car fighting. He said, so when they were fighting, I guess the driver then got out of the car. So they asked, like, who was the person who got out of the car? And he said the driver. They wanted to know what he was wearing. He said all black. They said, did he get involved with the girls? Yes. He said they were fighting for a while. I told my son to come in my room and get in my bed. They were bent over, grabbing each other, fighting, then separated. Then she got in the passenger side. So then he said one of the girls got into the passenger side. Then what did you see? They were still fighting. She was kicking her out. So he was basically saying, like, they went to get back in the car and somebody was like kicking somebody out of the car. Like he was saying, like he observed somebody like getting kicked, like they was just kicking somebody out of the car, And so then it went for several minutes. I was on my balcony. At some point, did you see a female leave? She didn't leave. She didn't leave. They was there for quite a while. When she went to the car, what happened next? So basically what they were saying was they had a fight. Two girls were fighting. Then the driver gets out of the car. So when the driver gets out of the car, one of the girls goes back to the car to the passenger seat. So they're trying to establish, like, okay, so they're fighting. A girl leaves. She goes to the car or whatever. And so they said, at some point, did you see a female leave? He said she didn't leave. She was there for quite a while. When she went to the car, what next? He said, I saw what I thought was fireworks, but it wasn't fireworks. Did you see a muzzle flash? Um, when the small guy came out of the car. He said one female went to the car passenger at some point. I saw the gentleman. They were all shouting and she climbed in the car. Did you see the smaller guy get out of the car? Yes, out of the passenger. When he got out, what did you see? Flashes, gunfire. Did you talk to the police? Yes. Did you speak to the detective? Yes. Did you speak to the investigator? I did. Yeah. Do you remember you saw a muzzle flash? Who was by it? The girl who was in the passenger seat. So he says the girl who had went to the passenger seat, she was the one that was closest to the muzzle flash when the muzzle went off. Now, all while we were in trial, they never named who which girl was. Mind you, this is a witness. This witness, he don't know Kelsey, he don't know Meg, he don't know Tori from a can of paint. So he's just speaking as to, hey, I seen two girls fighting. One girl left and went to the to the car. One girl came back. So we never got like, okay, this was Meg, this was, Kelsey. But being that we know facts about the case, you can kind of form an opinion and you can kind of understand like which girl is which, you know? So that was basically what that was. So, we just had to figure out, like, when he was saying the girl went, he never said the one girl or this girl or that girl. He didn't even specify, like, the girl who had on the pink or the girl. He never specified. He just was like, the girl went to the car, the girl was on the ground, and it was two different people the whole time. So they said, do you remember you saw a muzzle flash? Who was by it? The girl who was in the passenger seat. Is that who you saw the muzzle flash by? Yes. One girl was kicking the girl out the car. What did you see one lady do? She was standing close. They were fighting. Did you see the girl who was beat up go across the street? He said she crawled across the street. Did you, prior to the gun, hear somebody say, dance, bitch? No, I could hear quite clearly. So they were trying to establish this statement that Tori shot the gun at Meg and said, dance, bitch. He said he was on his balcony, so he was able to hear what was said. And, they were like shouting, they were very loud. And he said he never heard anybody say, dance, bitch. You were interviewed by who? Wait. I guess like when he was interviewed, he was asked like who had the gun, and he said two people. When you heard a female fighting, who had the gun? I never saw the gun, but I saw flashes. So he said he didn't see the gun, he saw flashes. I seen flashes first coming from the girl. They were all fighting. So each time he would answer a question, he would then reiterate that they were all fighting. Like, listen, it was just a lot going on. They were all fighting. It was just a lot. So he kept saying like they were all fighting, they were all fighting. Like after everything he said, he was like, they were all fighting. Who did you see the muzzle flash? Who did you see the muzzle flash come from first? I believe the girl first. Did the little guy take the gun? So they was calling Tory Lanez the little guy, the smaller guy, because I guess the driver is big. So they was going between calling him the little guy, the short guy, like the itty bitty little person, child. And that's how they was distinguishing Tory from the driver. So again, he didn't say, okay, so it was Tory who did this. It was Tory. It was the driver. He just said, big guy, little guy. Okay. So, and we all know who the little guy is. Did the little guy take the gun? They were all fighting, all shouting, making a lot of noise. Did you see the shorter guy run to the female? He didn't run, he jumped out. When the muzzle flashed, did he do anything with the woman? He says, did you state the person you thought the muzzle flash came back muzzle flash came back first was female? Yes. So they were asking him, like, about like if he saw the gun and things like that. So he said that he didn't know it was gun at first. He thought it was fireworks. So, and they were asking him questions and he kind of didn't recall some of the stuff. So, they were like, let me show you the transcripts. So I guess he had a 911 call and he also had a recorded conversation with the investigator for the defense. And he had an interview with one of the cops as well. So they kept like referring to different transcripts. So he was reading a transcript and it says, "My question to you is, do you like in those transcripts, did you describe who you described the shooter to be? One of the girls. Did you say the shooter or the shorter, sorry, child, I done scribbled and scrabbled this whole paper. Did you say the shorter guy took the gun?" Objection. So they immediately was trying to object that. And he said they all were fighting. Did you say you saw a girl shoot? I believe so. Did you state the shorter guy tried to take the gun? He was very angry. Then the flashes came from him. So now he done stopped saying that it was Kelsey. And now he's starting to say, listen, the flashes start coming from him at this point. Did you say my client tried to take the gun? Yes, they were all fighting, so I assumed he tried to take the gun. Sir, did you state that after the female shot the shorter guy tried to take the gun? They were all fighting. He didn't say, "Can I have the gun? It's my turn." So, child. So the way he said it was, okay, so they kept like trying to reiterate, like, didn't you see like my client try to take the gun? I mean, like try to take the gun from her. So he was like basically saying, he was like, well, I mean, he didn't say like, hey, it's my turn, like, like that. And so they said, sir, and mind you, it just keeps on repeating stuff, like saying stuff like the different way, but saying the same thing and over 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 again. He said, sir, who did the first shooting? I believe I saw the girl shoot first, but I thought it was fireworks. When you called 911, did you say fireworks or gun? He said, I don't remember. Did you ever say they were shooting? They both were shooting. So at this point, he had made mention that the flash came from Tory once, but he still was kept like the defense kept bringing it home and kept asking him again, like, was it a girl that shot? Was it a girl that shot? Over and over and over again. So then everybody in the courtroom, when he was like, they were both shooting, everybody was like, what? What? He said he had the gun, then he started shooting. They were all fighting, even the driver. Did the driver punch the women? So they wanted to know, like, listen, you're saying that the driver was fighting, but did the driver punch the women or did he separate them? He said he violently separated them. So I want to pause right there. Now, I had a lot of conversations with everybody who was there, who was in the courtroom, and how they interpreted the guy basically saying that the driver and Kelsey and Tory was beating up Megan. And I'm like, okay, so like, wouldn't that be something that Megan would say? Like, if they were all beating her up, wouldn't that be something that they would say? So the chatter in the courtroom, and I'm like, okay, well, I had to think about it. The chatter in the courtroom and what most people were saying was they felt like this is a rich white guy. He's overlooking this from his balcony. When Kelsey testified, okay, if we go back to Kelsey's testimony, when she testified, she said that Tori was beating her up. And I guess that the bodyguard went and snatched her up like a rag doll. So she said, so she never said anything about them beating each other up, but she also had immunity, okay? And she said that, you know, he went like, you know, like, but it was in that moment she was explaining in the audio before, and this is the audio that she said in September, but then she later said that it wasn't true. In that audio, she alleged that he, the bodyguard, had went and like, you know, just like grabbed her up and threw her, like to break it up or whatever, like grabbed her up and threw her over the shoulder and like moved her. So the chatter in the courtroom, they felt like because he is not like from a different culture, they felt like he probably views Black people in fighting and certain stuff a different way. So a lot of people in the courtroom felt like they didn't believe that the driver and everybody was beating Meg. This was like, I talked to like over 20 people. We were all like, at this point, like we were like having a discussion about like that. And based on like the other testimonies and putting stuff together, it seems like he's seen like a lot of movement. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like he seemed like seen a lot of movement. The driver coming, snatching the girl up, and he's just, you know, even though they're being separated and things like that, he's attributing it to everybody's fighting and stuff like that. I don't know. That's just a conversation that people had, but I will continue and carry on. But just something for you guys to consider, because that was a big chatter in the courtroom when we took for break and people, you know, were talking about that. They felt like white people always, you know, feel like we are doing more than what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like they already view us a certain type of way. So like certain stuff, you know, different cultures, like, you know, like even if like he just grabbing Kelsey up, you know, somebody else might be like, oh, he's beating her up, you know. So that's what we discussed in break. And that's what a lot of people started to like feel like, yeah, I don't think that. Cause I was really thinking about it. I'm like, if they was beating Megan up and they was just, you know, she just down there and they just beating her up and Tori beating her up, the driver beating her up and Kelsey beating her up, I'm like, I feel like that's something she would say. Like, I feel like that's something that she would be like, they all was attacking me and da-da-da, you know. So that part of it, even though he did say that, it was interpreted different from us who listened to it. Okay, but that is what he said. He said they all was beating her up. So back to the transcripts. Did you state the shorter gentleman didn't get out the car first? Yes. After fireworks, the short guy gets out? Yes. So they kept in place of like after shooting, he said he thought it was fireworks. So they were like, so after you heard the fireworks, isn't that when you seen the shorter guy get out? He says, yes. Did you see the shorter guy with the gun? I saw flashes, never saw a gun. There was a flash, then he got out the car fighting the girls, then more flashes. Now, they played the audio, okay? So I'm not saying that Tori, I don't know if it was Kelsey, I don't know if it was Tori. Based on what I'm listening to from this, like if I'm just taking into account of what this witness is saying, it's like, you know, I don't know who shot. However, while we were in court, they played the audio of the shooting, okay? So what he testified to was the gunshots went off and then the shorter guy got out of the car, and then like he was like basically insinuating like the girl may have took a shot and then there was like 5 other shots from the short guy. But when we heard the audio, there was only 5 shots and they were pretty back to back. It was like pow, 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 pow. Like it was like pretty back to back. So it didn't sound like it was enough time for somebody to be like, okay, I'm finna shoot. Okay, here, pass you the gun. Now you start shooting. Like if you listen to the audio of the gunshots, it was like pow, 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 pow. Like, but it was pretty like, it didn't really sound like it was enough time to be like, because if it's a struggle and it's like, I feel like it would have been more, I don't know. It didn't seem like that. So moving on. Did you see the shorter guy with a gun? I saw flashes, never a gun. There was a flash, then he got out the car. The girls, then more flashes. Okay. Sir, on the date of this incident, when you called 911, did you go downstairs? Like, so they wanted to know, like, did you go downstairs to see what was going on, or did you stay in your house? He said, I stayed inside and I waited for the police to arrive. How long did it take the police to come? The police arrived within 15 to 20 minutes. You told the officers that two women were fighting, then you saw someone separate. So as soon as they said that, the lawyers they had to go approach the bench. So they went to approach the bench, child. They was talking about whatever they was talking about in a sidebar conversation. Then they came back. Sir, talking about the first day you talked to the officers, were you being truthful? So the defense keeps it whenever the testimony doesn't, or the person doesn't answer the questions the way that he wants them to answer the questions, he then alludes that they're not telling the truth. He says, sir, talking about the first day you talked to officers, were you being truthful? The guy says yes. Okay. He says yes. Who had the gun first? The girl. And then he said, I saw both of them with the gun. But then, so this is where it gets contradicting, okay? So there was things that was contradicting. He said he never saw the gun. He said he thought it was fireworks. He said, I thought it was fireworks. I never saw the gun, but when I seen the muzzle flash came and it was this person, and then Tori got out the car and I seen muzzle flash come from that person. They asked him who had the gun first. He said the girl, and then he said he saw both of them with the gun. But he said that he never seen a gun. So how did you see both of them with the gun that you never seen? How that makes sense? The math ain't mathing on that part. So there was a couple of things to where it was like, huh? Wait, what? Did you tell them who was fighting? He said they all were fighting. Okay, so who was fighting first? Like, who was the people that was fighting first? The girls. The driver got out first, then Tori after shots were fired. So then he said the driver got out the car first, then after the shots were fired, then Tori got out of the car. Who was fighting? So it was a lot of repeats. Who was fighting? The two girls. Who had the gun first? The girl. Mind you, he said he never seen a gun. So how you gonna say the girl had the gun first and you never seen the gun? You said you never seen a gun and you always thought that they were fireworks. He said, I heard fireworks before the short guy. Oh, they said, did you hear fireworks before the short guy got out? Yes. The three of them were beating her. The female and both men, they were all beating her. She was in the fetal position. So this is when he's saying that everybody was beating Meg. Everybody was beating her up. And that's where we kind of like, I don't really know if you feel like if they really was beating her. Like, I don't know. Because I just think that would be something that she would say. Like, as much as Meg has spoke out about this, even though she did not admit, they all lied about shit. Okay. All of them lied. Somebody said he seen it. He seen what was going on, but he was up on a high balcony. Okay. And so he was on a high balcony that was way above them, and they were on the ground. It was dark at night. So where he's thinking like that they're down beating her. Like, could they have been, separating and picking people up? I don't know. So he said, wait, what did it say? They were all beating her. She was in a fetal position. But that's his testimony. I'm telling y'all what he said. He said, then after that, they threw her in the car. I thought they were going to kill her. Oh, no, I thought they were going to throw her in the river. They were trying to kill her. They dragged her across the street because he was saying that she was in the middle of the street and then she fell, and then they dragged her from across the street and they threw her in a car and sped off because the driver of the car had made some type of statement that the police was coming. So when they said like the police was coming, they threw her in the car and sped off. Do you remember speaking to officers? And then they asked him like, so then they brought it back again. He said she was kicking out the car. She fell out, then the driver got out. So they went back. And then the prosecution, it switched to the prosecution. So when the prosecution came, it says, counsel asked you about the 911 call. So like, it's like, what did you tell the 911? So they wanted to know, like, what did he tell 911 when he called 911? I told them there was a violent attack. So they wanted to establish if he, in fact, told the 911 operators that a girl had the gun. He wanted to know, when you called 911, what did you tell them? He said, I told them there was a violent attack. Did you say they were beating girls? Yes, at the time, all three were beating the girl. You saw a muzzle flash when the smaller guy got out. Yes, they were all fighting, the driver and two girls, and he became involved. Did the short guy say anything? They all were shouting and screaming. Do you recall saying this chap got out and started shooting? He was very agitated. He was firing everywhere. So I want to pause right here, right? So some people who was in a courtroom said that the guy said that Tory Lanez was shooting in the air. And people are like saying like, oh, Tory was shooting in the air. He never said that Tory Lanez was shooting in the air. Because I've seen some people like, no, this person said he was shooting in the air. This person didn't say it, and this person didn't mention it. I literally wrote down what he said. He never said that he was shooting in the air. He said, do you recall saying the chap got out and started shooting? He was very agitated. He was firing everywhere. But what he did do was he motioned with his hands. And when he motioned with his hands, he was like this, like, he was just shooting everywhere. Like he was shooting everywhere. But it was just like it wasn't necessarily him saying like, oh, Tory was shooting up in the air. That's not what he said. He said he did his hand like this, like he was shooting everywhere. Like he was shooting everywhere, like this. He didn't say Tory had his hand up and he's shooting up. That's not what he said. I was there in court. I observed. That's not what he said. What he did was he was like this. He was shooting everywhere like that. How many shots did you hear? 4 to 5 shots. So then that's when they played the gun audio. Okay. You said the short guy shot 4 to 5 shots. Is that what you heard? So on the audio that they played, it was about 5 shots that went off. So after they played the audio of the gun, he said, you said the short guy shot 4 to 5 shots. Is that what you heard? He said, yes. So when he heard the audio of the gunshots, he was kind of like reliving that moment, okay? So he had basically stressed that, like, he was scared and he was focused on his son. His son was there and he was focused on his son. And like when he heard that, he was kind of like, like it disheveled him a little bit on the stand. Okay, so they said after he shot the girl, what happened? She was kicking the whole time. She fell in the middle of the road. She was bleeding. Then she started crawling and stumbling. You thought you saw a female shoot inside? Yes. Can I just say, while this was going on, I told him to wait, hold up. Oh, okay. So he wanted to add and he wanted to say, okay, so they was like, you thought you saw a female shoot inside? Yes. So when he said that, he paused and he was like, can I just say, like, while this was going on, so while the gunshots was going on, at the same time that the gunshots was going on, he was more focused on getting his son on the ground. So that would then question, like, okay, if you hear gunshots and you trying to hurry up and make sure that your son get on the ground and make sure he get down because it's gunshots, how are you then at the same time looking to see what you're saying that you saw? But this is his testimony, okay? But those are just thoughts that I was thinking, because he was really like, when he heard this audio, he was like shaking up. Like it really, like, it shook him up, and he was like, at this time, like, I was just focused on getting my son on the ground. Like I was trying to get to my son. Like I was scared. Like I was scared. Like I wanted to get my son on the ground. So, that's something that I was thinking about. I was like, I don't know. Not saying whoever did whatever, but those are just question marks. Um, okay. So then they wanted to know about gun, the fifth gun shell. Okay. And he said that, I want to say, like, a few days later, his son found the gun shell. Okay. So then they said, are you sure the girl was shooting the gun? He said it was dark. And then he said she was kicking all the time. When she fell, she crawled. They were and then so when they asked, like, he kept emphasizing that one of the girls just was kicking. She just whole time kicking. Every time he like asks about this certain girl, he just says she kicking. So she was kicking. She fell, she crawled. They were saying he was trying to ask him, so what words were they saying? Like, did you hear them saying words? Like, what words were they saying? Like, because he was trying to, this is the prosecution's line of questioning that I'm reading. So he was trying to get to, whether or not he said dance bitch or whatever. So they were like, so what did you hear? So he kind of like paused for a little bit. And then he was like, I heard N words, MFers. They were all calling each other, all of them. So he said they was all calling each other niggas, motherfuckers, and all kind of stuff like that. The short guy was going crazy. He was really agitated. Okay. So he said the short guy was going crazy and he was really agitated. Child, I don't drink Starbucks often, but when I do, child, it was a long day. It was a long day. When I tell you it was a long day, it was a long day. So after that was said, then the defense came up for redirect. Okay. Okay. So he said, Mr. Kelly, there was a lot of questions asked of you. Do you remember speaking to my investigator? He said, like, what day was it? Because the prosecution kept trying to insinuate that the only time that he started mentioning that it was possibly a gun was when he talked to the investigator. So he was basically saying, like, okay, so every time you talk to 911, you never mention anything about a woman shooting. You never said when the cops came, there was a woman shooting. You never mentioned any of these things when you talked previous. It wasn't until the defense came that you started saying that this situation with a woman. So he said, you talked to, I guess, the defense investigator in January of 2021. And so that's when he talked to, I believe the defense, and wait, huh? And then September 2021 was when he talked to prosecution. So he's saying that, the prosecution talked to him after they talked to him. So he was insinuating that once they talked to him, like somehow his story done changed up or something like that. He said, isn't it true that you stated he tried to grab the gun from the female? And this was after he made him recall what he said on the transcript. Somebody said Neek is confusing me. Child, this how it was in court. This how it was coming out. That's what I'm saying. It's crazy when y'all, like, cause he don't say, he don't know Megan, he don't know Kelsey, and he don't know Tori. So he was just saying the girl did this, the shorter guy did that. And he never said, like, the bigger girl or the thisser girl. Like, he never said, he just was like the bigger girl, the smaller girl, this and that. And they kept going back and forth. Like, this was how it was coming out, child. He said, so he made him reread the transcripts on what he originally said. He said, isn't it true you stated he tried to grab the gun from a female? Yes. Isn't it true you said the chap tried to take the gun? I didn't see the gun. They were all fighting. So where do they say chap at? Because I don't know if his accent was British. I don't know if he's like, from Europe or where. I can't really pinpoint where he was from, but he had like a really thick accent that was either British or like Europe, like from Europe or something. I don't know. Who said which one says chap? Is that the UK? Is that the UK? London? Oh, okay. Somebody said I'm confusing y'all. That is how it was going in court. Like, this is how the stuff was laying out. So it went like that in court. Like, I wrote it down as it came out. They would jump around, like asking him stuff, like asking him from like what he said in the transcripts, what he seen when they got out, what he seen. Like, it was not in sequential order. It was, I asked this question, then I asked this question. No, you got to re-say this question, repeat this. Like, it was not, it didn't, like, it was the defense who said their questions. Prosecution then had to start back from the top, ask their questions. Then there was a redirect. Defense gets up. Oh, no, didn't you say this? Then he would start with his question. So each time they're coming back, they're starting back at a point in the story. They're not starting with like the beginning, the middle, or the end. They're starting at which point they want to make sure he remembers or says. So, that's how it's going. It's not going like, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. It's going, okay, what's the important parts? You seen this person, y'all get my drift. So anyway, um, where was I at? Wait, did I already read that part? Okay, so he said, "Isn't it true you said the chap tried to take the gun? I didn't see the gun. They were all fighting. When you saw the first muzzle, it was from the female." Okay, so he said they were all fighting, shouting loud, highly agitated, swearing. They were all swearing. Who did you see? Okay, da, da, da. He said he believed the first shot came from the girl. So the cross examination came and went to prosecution. It says, so now prosecution is asking him questions. It says, did the investigator record you guys? He said, I don't remember. Did you know he recorded you? I would have liked to know. So then he tried to act like he didn't know that the defense was recording him. But then later in testimony, he admitted that the guy had the tape recorder in his hand. So it's like, if he got the tape recorder in his hand, how you gonna say you didn't know he was recording and he got a whole tape recorder in his hand ready to record? Child, it was a mess. When the flash started, they were all out of the vehicle. So now he's like, okay, when he first testified, he said that Tory Lanez and the driver was in the car. Kelsey, mind you, he didn't name them, but I'm giving him names, was outside. And he said that the shot went closer to Kelsey. Now that he's talking to the prosecution, they said, because he said when it first started going off, Tory was still in the car. So now prosecution asked him a question, and it says, when the flash started, they were all out of the car, right? He said, yes. So that contradicts what he said to the defense. Because when he talked to the defense, he said that Tory Lanez and the driver was in a car. The flash went off closer to the girl, and Tory got out after the flash went off. Well, when he talked to the prosecution is like, when the flash started, they were all out of the vehicle. He said yes. So then the prosecution was trying to insinuate that when the defense investigators went to talk to him, they tried to put the story in him. Like, they tried to walk him through how he was going to say what happened. Okay. So he said, did child, I done got tongue tied. Did the defense investigator do a walkthrough? Yes. Was it recorded? Yes. So now he remembered that it was recorded. Did he do a dry run before recording? So basically they wanted to know, did he walk you through what you was going to say before he started recording? He said yes. So he said he started recording after he had gave his statements. So then the prosecution said, are you intimidated by the defense investigator? I don't believe he answered that. I don't remember if he answered that because I didn't write that down, child. So let me paint the picture for y'all real quick before somebody said, how old was this man? I don't know. Certain people age differently, but he has all white hair, all gray hair. But he looks hip and trendy. You know, he had his Reeboks on. And so he's an older white man, but he also still is kind of hip and trendy. So he may be in his 50s, maybe early 60s. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I don't know. Because he was hip and trendy, but he had all gray hair. I don't know. I don't know how old he was, but he was an older man. So then they asked, did you mention a girl was shooting on the 911 call? He says no. Did you say a female was the shooter to the officer? When I talked to the officers, I didn't. Oh, so and then they was asking him, was the call recorded when he talked to the officers and everything like that? He says he didn't know it was recorded. and he didn't tell them that a female shot. So after that, we ended up going to lunch. Okay. So after we went to lunch and we came back from lunch, he was still on the stand. So they were still asking him questions. Like, they went and repeated the same shit again. The prosecution would say this, the defense would get back up and say this. Well, didn't you say this? And then it would be something totally different. And like, he would say yes to the defense, and then the prosecution would say, well, didn't you say it was Tory? And then he would say yes, and it was just going back and forth, and it was just a lot. Okay. It was a lot. 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 So that's why, like, when you see stuff reported on the Shade Room and on things, like, it's crazy when you're in the court how different it goes. Because yes, he said one thing, but then right after that, he said something different. But when it gets onto the blogs, they only post the one thing he said, so it's not showing like he said this and that and that and that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, he said they always beating her up, but it wasn't. Anyways, child. So after lunch, I believe this is the prosecutor was still asking him questions. So the prosecutor resumed asking him questions, okay? He said, I asked about the female shooter. Like, what did you wait, what? I don't know what I wrote right there. I asked about Okay. So they were like, okay, so after you talk to the defense, that's when the female shooter came up. So like after you talk to them, that's when the idea of a female shooter came up. He said, when I talked to the officer, I was more concerned about my son who was alone. So they were asking him, when you talked to the officer who was on the scene, did you tell the officer about somebody being a female shooter? He said, listen, I wasn't really focused on all of that. I was focused on my son. I was outside talking to them, and my son was inside. So I was more focused on trying to get back to my son. So that would explain, like, I didn't tell them all the details because I wasn't even like, I'm trying to get back to my son. Because they were trying to say, like, well, you didn't say nothing about a female shooter. He was like, I wasn't focused on that. Like, I was trying to get back inside. My son was in the house. He was by himself. I was outside, So that was that. So they said, who struggled with the gun? Was it a struggle? He said, I don't know. Was it you or the defense who suggested there was a struggle with the gun? You testified when the short guy was outside, something was in his hand. Yes. Was that when you heard shots? Yes. The short guy was the loudest. Yes. Very agitated. So he was like, he kept insinuating, like, out of everybody, Tory was the most rah-rah one. He was the most loudest one. He was the most agitated one. He was the most violent one. And that's what he was basically attesting to. So then after they said that, then the defense came back and wanted to do a redirect. So now, okay, hold up. You done said this. Now we got to come back and ask you some more. So they were like, so the prosecution was trying to make it seem like he never said that the shooter was a girl. So he only starts saying it when the defense started talking to him. So now the defense is back questioning him. And so they said, were you ever asked to describe the shooter? So now I'm like, okay, it's getting good now. So when they asked him, when the police officers came and when he talked to the 911 call, did either of them ask him to describe the shooter. He said no. Like when he called into 911, they didn't say like who was the shooter, what they look like. They never asked him that, so he didn't volunteer that information because that never was asked of him. You were asked about a struggle with the gun. Weren't you asked that? He said they were all fighting. See, so he said, after a female shot, did you see a struggle? Yes, they were all struggling at the same time. They were all fighting. And then he said Tory Lanez got out the car when it all happened. So he said, like they said, did you see a struggle with the gun? He says, yes, they were all struggling at the same time. They was all fighting. So that's not what he asking. He's trying to ask, was it a struggle with the gun? He like, they was all tussling. They was all struggling. They was all fighting. Okay. And then after that, Tory Lanez got out the car. So this is back to the part where the shots or the driver had got out and was supposedly beating him, and then Tory joined in. So after that, they ended up excusing him as a witness. They end up excusing him as a witness. They asked him, do you want to testify here today? Like, do you want to be here? Do you want to testify? And he was saying that he was very uncomfortable. He didn't really want to testify. He doesn't feel comfortable testifying. He was asking him, like, was he being truthful in his testimony? And he was just like, I don't even feel comfortable even doing none of this shit. Like, I don't even feel comfortable being up here. Like, it's just too much. Like, he was just like, like this is a lot. And I'm thinking in my head, yes, it's a lot. So then they dismissed him as a witness, and then they recalled a witness by the name of Rogelio Diaz. So he had already testified before, and he's the officer who interviewed Sean Kelly. So he interviewed this guy when he took like the statements. So they wanted to know, you interviewed Sean Kelly. Yes. What did he tell you he saw? He saw what did he tell you he saw outside his house? He saw a black Cadillac. He said he saw two females in an altercation inside a vehicle and outside. Did you ask him to give you a description of the shooter? I don't recall. Did you ask for a description? No. So he was trying to like let it be known, like, y'all trying to say that he only started that the guy only started saying that it was a female shooter when we talked to him, but the officers who took statements, they never asked who the shooter was and to describe him, which I feel like is absolutely crazy. Like, how are y'all investigating a shooting? You're talking to witnesses, but you don't ask the witness who the shooter was, what the shooter looked like, how the shooter was. The shooter male, was it female? What? And so when people say that the officers did a bad job, I'm like, I'm willing to agree, because that don't make no sense. If you're investigating a shooting, I would think that as an investigator, I'm going to ask who was shooting. Who was shooting? Was it the male? Was it the female? They never asked him. The cops never asked him who was shooting or to describe the shooter, or if it was a woman, if it was a man. What? What? They asked the prosecution if they had any questions for this witness. They didn't even want to question him. They didn't even want to question him. They was like, we don't got no questions for him, and they dismissed him. As soon as he sat down was as soon as he got up. Prosecution was like, child, we can't do nothing with that info. We not even go question him. Cause then it's gonna make it look like they ain't competent. Cause how you, the detective investigating, don't ask who the shooter is or what they look like. What? So the next witness was Detective Ryan Stogner. Stogner was the lead investigator on the case. Stogner has now, from my knowledge, been relieved of his duties because he ended up getting into a domestic violence situation. At the time of this situation, he was the lead detective, okay? So they were like, sir, are you the lead detective? Yes. Were you in charge of asking follow-up questions in this case? Like, you were the main detective, you were the lead detective, and you were also the detective that was supposed to follow up with information. He said yes. They said, did you talk to Sean Kelly? Because Sean Kelly is the guy who said he's seen the girl shoot. Then he said Tori shot. Then he said all the stuff. Did you talk to Sean Kelly? Yes. Did you record it? No. So they were like, why didn't you record when you talked to the witness? And he said, it's not protocol when they talk to witnesses and they're just trying to get like a quick statement on what they're saying. It's not protocol for them to record it. Okay. He says they just, call, talk to them for a little bit, see what they saying, and then that be that. Like, that's not their protocol to record the call. Okay. So he said, did he tell you he saw two girls fighting? Detective Ryan Stogner or ex-detective or whatever his duties are. He said yes. Did he tell you, he saw the two girls fighting? He said yes. And then they wanted to know about the female and the weapon. He said that the guy basically offered the information. Like, they didn't even ask the guy, and he just offered the information. And it says he offered the information that the other female wait what did I write? Okay, I believe he said, because I don't know what the how I wrote this, but he offered, from my recollection from me being there, he offered that, like, he just volunteered information that the flash was near the female. Did he say who had the firearm? So they wanted to know, like, when you talked to him, did he tell you who had the firearm? And the ex-detective or Stogner, whatever, he said he couldn't tell. He said one female was near the muzzle flash. So, he's like, with the detective or that was at the time, he says that, when he talked to him, he said that he's saying that Sean Kelly was saying that the muzzle was near the female. Like, that's where it was. He said, did you hear him say anything about the short man? The fact that they kept calling the Tory Lanez the short man, the smaller guy, the little guy, I was just done. Like, what is going on? So it says, did he say anything about the short man? No. He said, did he tell you that my client had the gun? No, he didn't say that specifically. he gave a description of what he saw, which was both males went to the female. Who was on the phone? Oh, so then they switched from asking him about that. And then they wanted to know what was said when they talked to Megan. So this detective interviewed Sean Kelly, and he also interviewed Meg the Stallion. So when he interviewed Meg the Stallion, she was basically on three-way with her team. She had her lawyer and what's the lady? What's the Rock Nation lady name? Damn, why didn't I write down her name? Because I just knew I remembered her name at the time, so I didn't even write it down. But it was Meg, the lady who been in the news about being in Rock Nation and being on like with Megan, that lady that was working with Meg, Desiree. There we go. Is it Desiree? Anyways, she was on, yes, Desiree Perez. Megan, the attorney, Desiree, and the police, they were all on the three-way. So they like basically sound like coaching Megan on what to say. So when he first talked to Megan, she was on the phone with her team, and the phone call was not long. It was like a 3 to 5 minute call. Okay? They said, "Did you ask Miss Pete, was she drinking? She was coming from a party and alcohol was consumed. Did Megan say she never had an argument with Kelsey? She said they all argued leaving the party and that words were exchanged with Kelsey. Did she say that she had a fight with Kelsey? No. Did she say that my client offered her $1 million? No, sir. Was there any mention my client offered her money? No. She said my client was on probation. And then he said, she never told officers that she was in a fight. Is that your testimony? Yes, sir. She said she didn't want to make, so then they were, the detective. Now, I'm like, what's going on here? The detective was asking her who shot her on this first phone call. Now, the first phone call that they had with her, again, it was a brief phone call and it wasn't that long. When they were talking to her and they were asking her who the shooter was and who shot her, on the phone call with Desiree, her attorney, and the officer, she said she didn't want to answer because she didn't want to make any false allegations on who shot her. What? They said when they asked her on the first phone call who shot her, she didn't want to answer because she didn't want to make any false allegations. What? What? I was sitting there like, what? So they kept kind of going over that, and he kept repeating that, like, she didn't want to make any false allegations. She didn't want to, like, they kept going over that. So then they got to the part about George Floyd. So they were like, she made mention that the reason why she didn't, want to tell on Tory Lanez was because of George Floyd. So did she mention George Floyd when you guys talked? No. Did she mention anything about my client bribing her? No. Did she tell you she stopped at the bus stop? No, not that I recall. The people you interviewed made two different statements. Is that correct? So he was basically saying, like, you interviewed Sean Kelly, you interviewed Meg Thee Stallion. Both these people gave you two completely different statements. The people you interviewed made two different statements, correct? Yes. Which direction did Meg started walking? They wanted to know, like, when she said that she got out, like, I guess when she was supposed to have, like, got shot or whatever, they wanted to know what direction was she walking? Was she walking towards the front of the car? Was she walking towards the back of the car? Was she walking like this? Like, which direction did she go when she started walking away from the car? So they wanted to know which direction she started walking. And they said that she started walking towards the back of the car. So when she's walking away, she's walking towards the back of the car. So they wanted to establish, okay, would that be northbound, southbound? Like, if she's going to the front, is that southbound? If she's going to the back of the car, is that southbound? Yeah, because I think they said it was southbound. So he said yes. So it would be going in a direction which southbound, which is towards the back of the car. So the car is parked this way, right? She got out and they're in the car. She got out and she started walking facing the back of the car. So she's out and she's walking away from the car and she's walking towards the back of the car. So as she's walking towards the back of the car, I guess that's when this was supposed to happen. So they're trying to figure out, was she facing them or which way was she facing? She was walking towards the back of the car. It says she never said she argued or got in a fight with Kelsey. No. So they wanted to know, like, okay, so did she ever mention her fighting Kelsey? No. Is the only person who said they heard dance bitch dance? Is the only person that heard that? Is that Megan? He says yes. So then they wanted to ask him his knowledge of bullet fragments. And he said, to his knowledge, when projectiles hit objects, they then turn into bullet fragments. But they started asking him other things that were not within his scope, so he didn't answer. Like, so I didn't even write it down because he didn't even answer. So then the defense sat down, and now the prosecution came back up. Okay. So the prosecution said, is it fair to say the interview with Sean Kelly was brief? Correct. It was only like 3 to 5 minutes. Did he ever say a female shot a gun? Now, this is the prosecution that is now asking these questions. Did he ever say, when the detective talked to Sean Kelly, did he ever say that a female shot the gun? No. Did he say that a female held a gun? No. Who did she say the shooter was? Her friend or Tory Lanez? She didn't know she was shot at first. So they were asking him, like, okay, so who did she say the shooter was? Like, was it Tory? Did she say it was her friend? And they said she didn't know that she was shot. It says, who did she say the shooter was? So I believe they're talking about a separate, like a second interview that they did with Megan at this point. I should have wrote that down, but I think this was a second, I think this was the second time that he talked to Megan. Who did she say the shooter was? Tory Lanez. She said she saw him point the gun and start firing. Yeah, so the first time he talked to Megan, she did not talk about who the shooter was. She said she didn't want to make false statements. When they talked to her a second time, that's when she named Tory Lanez as the shooter, and she said that it was Tory Lanez. As she turned her head, did she say the shooter was Tory? That is correct. In the interview, did she mention him offering $1 million? Yes. So the first interview, she never mentioned that he tried to bribe her. She didn't mention who the shooter was or anything like that. But by the time that she talked to them again, that's when she said it was Tory. And that's when she said that he tried to bribe her with $1 million. So then they requested the jurors leave out. So we were about to take like an hour break, and they wanted the jurors to leave out because they wanted to address some things in court out of earshot of the jurors. So the prosecution had an issue with EJ's testimony of him claiming that Tory, or he did not know Tory to be a violent person. EJ testified and he said that, Tory was cool. He wasn't violent. He didn't know anything about him having a gun. He didn't know anything about that. He seemed like a cool guy. He felt like Megan would be safe with him. And he didn't feel like, she would be in harm's way if she was left with Tory. So they wanted to put that they could do the following. So they said, if Tory Lanez is to testify, we need to be able to rebuttal what EJ said, because EJ made a character. He did a character witness, or what did he say? What's the word? EJ was describing his character as like not a violent guy. So they want to be able to rebut that, and they want to prove that he is a violent guy. So they said if Tory takes the stand, they want to be able to ask him about his social media posts. They want to ask him about his rap lyrics where it mentioned, violence and stuff like that. They want to be able to ask him about the assault on August Alsina. They want to ask him about the situation with Love and Hip Hop Prince, who he had assaulted. They want to ask him about the 1501 record label. They want to ask him about the lyrics in the song in his song, his album that he made about Megan. He had mentioned something about butchering the horse's feet. Talks that he denies she wasn't shot. Talks where he lied about how, so he wanted to, child, I'm sorry, I ran on it. So he wanted to talk about the lyrics of where he mentioned butchering, like a butcher butchering Megan's feet. They also want to talk about how he lied about how tall he was. They was like, we even want to talk about how we want to even prove and talk about how he lied about how tall he was. Like, we want to talk about that. And then we went to break. Whew, how many more pages of this is it? Oh my God, it was a lot. So we went to break, and we went to break for I don't remember how long it was. So when we came back from break, Stogner was back on the test to testify. And now the prosecution was basically questioning him. So they say, do you recall a question about probation? Yes. Do you recall talking about diversion? And then they asked because the defense was basically saying like my client, because according to Kelsey and Meg, the reason why he bribed them was because he said that he was on probation. The prosecution wanted to establish that he was on some type of diversion. He wasn't on probation, but there was some type of diverted sentence. So they wanted him to explain what diversion means. Like when you are a person, you convicted and they do like a diversion, what does that mean? He didn't really have a lot of info on that, so they didn't allow him to explain because that wasn't in his expertise, I guess. So they didn't even let him explain that. When you interviewed the witness, were you truthful? Correct. Does it say Sean Kelly was difficult? No. You were satisfied with his questions? Yes. When he said a female was next to the muzzle, you assumed he was talking about a female? Yes. Did you ask everything that was relevant? So they like, when you did this, did you ask all the relevant questions? And then he says yes. And so I believe they're talking about Megan now. So now he's like, okay, so now let's get to the time when you was talking to Megan. So when you was talking to Megan, did you ask all the relevant questions? She like, did she tell you like she didn't want to answer any of your questions? Didn't she say she didn't want to testify because she didn't want to accuse anyone? Yes. Did you see her IG post? No. Did you see where she posted that her oh wait, this is the defense again. Wait, where did the defense come in? Okay, this is the defense. So now the defense is talking. Yeah, this was the defense. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm getting sleepy. Okay, okay, yeah, so this is the defense. So they're like, didn't Megan tell you that she didn't want to testify because she didn't want to accuse anyone? Yes. And then they said, did you see her IG post? No. Did you see that she posted that her back was turned? No. Wouldn't that be important? Yes. So the defense is trying to establish that they did a crappy job of keeping up with what is being said. Megan is making statements on Instagram, and the detectives are not looking on her Instagram to see what was said. So they like, wouldn't that be important? Like what she's saying, like if she said her back was turned and everything like that. Did you see this post? So the picture that Megan posted to Instagram where her foot, like she was laying on the bed and it showed her foot and then it showed like the table that was next to it. That's the post that they showed. Did you see this post? No, I didn't go through all her posts. As a lead detective, who went through her post? I don't know. So it's like you have a witness, or I mean a victim. In this case, the victim is making statements online, and y'all are oblivious to what she done posted and ain't checked to see what she posted. So then they wanted to ask about Tory Lane's probation accusation. They said in 2020, 2019, and 2018, was Tory Lanez on probation? Like when you looked up Tory Lanez information and you looked him up, did it show he was on probation between, 2020, 2019, 2018? It says no, he didn't have no info on a probation. So then the prosecution came back up. Okay? And then it says when you talk to Megan, you talk to her in person and on the phone. Which was more detailed? He said the conversation that I had that was in person, that was more detailed conversation. Because, they were trying to establish like, okay, well, Megan didn't say who shot her. She didn't say this on the first time, but then she said this on the second time. So they wanted to know like, okay, so when you talked to her, which one did you give a more in-depth run through of the events? And they said that the second time that they talked to her was when that happened. And then after that, Stogner was excused. So then after that, they recalled Randy Zepeda, and they wanted to rebut their expert witness that testified for the defense. So there was a expert that testified that there was female DNA found on the gun. They wanted to bring in this Randy Zepeda. He works out of the LA Crime Lab, and they wanted him to basically discredit what the other guy said. So basically, one expert said it was a female's DNA on the gun. They want him to basically say, no, it was not a female's DNA on the gun. So, can DNA transfer? So they wanted him to explain how DNA transfers from one thing to the next. He said, it's possible each occurrence there will be less DNA to transfer. So he said, if it was like you and I shook your hand, right? Your DNA or your touch DNA would be on my hand. But then if I touched another person's hand and I shook their hand, less of your DNA would be on me the more occurrences or contact that I had. So, so they wanted to know, can a napkin remove DNA? And then he said, it can remove some. So they wanted to know, like, can like if you wipe down a gun with a napkin, can it remove the DNA? He said it will remove some. So then they wanted to talk about like DNA transfer again and how you're less likely to transfer DNA after you washed your hands. So if you just washed your hands, you're less likely to transfer as much DNA because I guess in between, like you're sweating, you're touching your hair, you're doing all this stuff. So after you wash your hands, there is less DNA that you would have to transfer onto somebody. So then he said, equivalent to it being less DNA that gets transferred when you wash your hand, it's the equivalence of somebody being in the swimming pool. So he said, if you are in the swimming pool, it's just like washing your hands. After you leave out of the pool, you will have less DNA that you transfer. Okay, so they were trying to say, like, if you're in a pool, you laying down in a pool, you're gonna have less DNA, that's gonna transfer. So he said, we don't know if his DNA was on the gun. Does that mean that he didn't fire the gun? Because Tory's DNA was inconclusive. So they said, we don't know if his DNA was on the gun. So does that mean that he didn't fire the gun? No. It was an inconclusive result. He said, there was a mention of female DNA. There is at least, so he said, there is at least one male's DNA who was at like 90 something percent, but he cannot specifically say that it was female. He said that there was 3 other profiles on the gun and they all had such a low percentage of DNA that he can't say whether it was a girl DNA or a guy DNA. So he did. So they asked him, did he agree with the guy saying it was a female DNA? He said no. Like, it wasn't even enough DNA so that you could tell that it was either a girl or a guy. It just was enough that you could tell that it was a different profile. But it could have been 2 men, 2 women. It could have been all 4 men. It was not enough information to state that it was in fact a female that had the gun. So the expert witness did not testify that correctly. So after he said that, they were like, okay, so you work at the LAPD crime lab. Is your lab accredited? He said yes. And before that, they said, is the lab of this expert that they got, the expert that says that it was female DNA, does he have an accredited lab? No. They said, is it important to have like your crime lab be accredited? Like, does that mean something, like that it's accredited? And he said, yes, like that's very important for you to be accredited because you have more access to more DNA profiles and you will be able to access, I believe he said, the FBI's database when you're accredited, but you have less availability to use when you are not accredited. So he said you get more access when you're accredited. So then Tory's lawyer came up and he said, do you have a reason to believe that? Because, they were trying to say like they're not even accredited, so we can't even trust their word. That's basically what he was saying. So when the defense lawyer came up, he said, do you have a reason to believe they didn't do a good job? I believe he said no. And then he said, like, aren't the people who are able to do like panels and do like DNA analysis, aren't they approved by the court? He said yes. So, they're good enough to be used by the court. So like these is people who the court uses also, like they're approved people from the court. So like, do you think he was doing a bad job that they're trying to insinuate? He like, nah. And then and they was making sure he knew like they're on a court approved list. Do you have evidence that the gun was wiped off? No. So then he said, with male and female DNA, there are some who have more major levels and some who have low levels. So they said there was a male profile that was 90% on a gun. So he said the person who had a 90% profile that it was determined was male, if 4 DNA profiles are on the gun, is the person who has a 90% DNA on the gun, were they the last person to shoot the gun? He said no, that doesn't mean that they're the last person to shoot the gun. If you touch a gun, another person touches a gun, another person touches a gun, Another person touches the gun. All y'all DNA is on the gun. There's no way to say like this person touched it first, this person touched it second, this person touched it last. All it's going to show is all y'all DNA is on it. So basically what he's trying to say is like, yes, there was a male DNA marker that was 90%, but there was also 4 other profiles on there, and just because his is on there the most, that doesn't mean that he was the last person to touch the gun. Somebody very well else could have been, touching the gun in that different sequence. He said, so then he said, there isn't, evidence that it was male or female. So like, we don't have enough evidence to say that it was a male or female. He said, if you had Kelsey's DNA profile, could you tell like if it was female? Like if the detectives had took Kelsey's DNA, would you then be able to say it was a female, it was her, it was not her? He said yes. And then he said, you can't tell us Kelsey wasn't one of them because you don't have her DNA. Yes. He said, if I had her DNA, I would have been able to make a comparison. So they were stressing the fact that, you had these profiles. You can't say if it was male or female, but you also never had Kelsey's DNA to test it against. You only tested for Tori. You never tested for Kelsey, and they both had GSR on them. Okay? And so that was pretty much it. Okay? So then after that, they basically had to go through all of the different evidence that they had. So they basically had to like, okay, this photo of this bloody suitcase, are we amidst, like, is that in? Is this text message in? Objection denied. So they had to literally go line by line by line, or photo by photo by photo of, okay, are we going to, this was a long process, child. They had to go through each exhibit to see what they were going to allow and what they were not going to allow. They talked about which audio they were going to allow, which video they were going to allow. And so they had to go through like what they were going to be allowed to put in or not in or whatever. And then after they were deciding on which evidence can be allowed and which evidence can't be allowed, then it got juicy. I'm like, oh my God, this stuff never ends. This is crazy. So you have, so let me just say this real quick. Tori's lawyer, his co-lawyer, his investigator, they all look like they came straight out of a Sopranos mob movie. They all like are big. They all look like they mafia type of guys. Like they look like, real intimidating, And so when they were questioning Sean Kelly, the prosecution, they were asking, because the investigator, he looked just like them, like a big mob looking guy. He was asking like, were you intimidated by the, investigator? That's just, extra that I'm telling y'all. But then he said the whole time, like he said today in court, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sleepy at the same time. I'm trying to tell y'all this, but my mouth just dropped. The male prosecutor, I'm sorry, y'all. The male prosecutor said that Tory Lane's lawyer told him that if he keep moving his mouth, he gonna watch what happened. He then said Tory Lane's lawyer keeps calling him an idiot and talking shit. And he said that he keep on like saying stuff to me. He told me that like if I keep moving my mouth, something was gonna happen to me. And I'm thinking like, did he really say this? So then Tory Lane's lawyer says, well, Judge, I told you why I said it. He was like, he's sitting here, he's calling me an idiot. The guy said that Tory Lane's lawyer is calling him an idiot, telling him if he keep moving his mouth, watch what happen, all this stuff. So I'm like, what? So then Tory Lane's lawyer was looking at him like up and down, like very much like. And then he said, he said, Judge, and in the chambers, I told you why I said that. I'm like, not what? I'm like, what is going on here? He said, I would like him to be admonished for saying those things to me and calling me an idiot and telling me that something gonna happen to me if I keep moving my mouth. I'm like, what? So then the judge said that he was not going to punish him for that because he said, I want him punished and admonished for that. Tory's lawyer, somebody said, who was threatened? He was he was saying the prosecution, there's a male and a female. The male prosecutor, he said that he been getting threatened by Tory's lawyer and that he want him to be punished because he calling him an idiot and said he gonna do something to him if he keep on talking or making a smirk and calling him an idiot and all this stuff. And the lawyer said, well, Judge, I told you why I said that. So the judge was like, listen, y'all just need to have good, good court ethic. I didn't see him say those things, so I'm not going to admonish him. I just want y'all to I'm just paraphrasing, but he was just basically like, I want y'all to just get it together. Shortly after that, we were excused, child. It was a lot. So I'm going to put the StreamYard link in the chat. I'm going to allow some of y'all to come up. I'm probably not going to get to all of y'all because it has been a long day. It has been a long day, y'all. So, I'm probably not going to get to all of y'all, but I want to know after hearing this, what do y'all think? What do y'all think about it? Because it was a lot going on. Click the link and come up. Let's talk about it briefly. And then we're going to be out, child, because I just could not believe all that was going on. Somebody said, Nick, you look tired. Yes, I am tired. I am tired. While I'm waiting for somebody to come on, I want to address me and Millie's situation real quick. So when I went to court, me and Millie had words yesterday. When I got home, before I got home, I had mentioned the situation. And I said something like, bitches is mad, whatever. Because there was slick comments being said from, the front or whatever, that direction. And there was also, words that we ended up exchanging. After I did that live, then somebody had commented to me to say that Millie said that she pressed me and that I was scared to face her and all this stuff like that. And I'm like, what? Like that didn't happen like that. Like what? Like, like that's crazy. So then I was sent to her station head where she was talking about it. Okay. And so on station head, there was a guy who was also in court. This is a guy who I spoke to who was very friendly talking to me. He was talking cool. He was telling me like how because I was asking everybody like, "Oh, what you think about this? What you think about that?" He was very nice. He was very nice. And so I realized that the guy who I was talking to that was real nice is the same guy who was on Millie's station head. So while he was on station head, he was basically giving an account of when me and her had words. And he said, Millie was about to slap somebody. And so then they started talking about it and, insinuating like I was being talked to and I was scared. So I'm like, that's definitely not what happened. That's definitely not how it happened. So when I got to court today, I came in. At first, Millie wasn't in there, and then she ended up coming in. So I wanted to wait till the guy came in there to address the situation, you know, and see what's what's tea, like what's going on. When I got up there, he started talking to, I think, Orman or somebody. He was talking to somebody, and he was basically repeating what he said on her live. And then it clicked, like, oh, okay, because I wasn't for sure that it was him. Because I'm like, was this the guy that I was talking to? Because he was so friendly. So I wasn't for sure that it was him. So I hadn't addressed the who was gonna slap who thing. Like who's slapping somebody. So he started repeating something, and it clicked. I'm like, oh, you the one. Oh, so you said I was gonna get slapped. You said she was gonna slap me. Like, who was gonna get slapped? You know? And then he was like, oh, I was just making an observation. Da, da, da. I was like, well, I mean, but you said somebody was gonna slap me. So who was gonna slap me? Like, who was gonna get slapped? Like, what was about to happen? You know? And then so he was like, this isn't intelligent or something. Like, I was just making an observation. I said, so you made an observation that somebody was going to slap me? This isn't intelligent. He just kept saying, this isn't intelligent. This isn't intelligent. I'm like, who was about to slap me, sir? That's what I want to know. Like, you said she was going to slap me. Was she about to slap me? Like, is that what you're saying? He was like, no, I was just saying I was making an observation. I said, it's crazy. Like, you was all nice and smiling. And even when you came in here, you was smiling, but you got on there and you was saying that somebody was about to slap me. I was like, so that sounds like a threat was directed my way. And I should be expecting, like, some type of action. Like, it's being said that I was about to get slapped. So who was about to slap me? It was an observation. It was observation. Da, da. So I'm like, boy, anyways, we kind of got a little ghetto at the time. I did not have, I didn't make an exchange with Millie. I just was acting like, you said she was better slap me. Like, what was going on? We didn't have like a talk. We didn't talk at that time. So after that, because I was just very irritated because, like, even though me and her had words, like, wasn't nobody like it was like we wasn't even close to each other. So it's like we wasn't even like she was like here, I'm like way over here. Like, I'm like, so how do you get to like where she was about to slap me and all that? Like, where did that come from? Like what? Like, huh? Like that? What? Like where did that come from? You know? So that was that. So we went through court. I came there to do a job. I reported. I'm like, this guy is bogus, extremely bogus, whack. Like, why you trying to be extra like that? Like, what? Like, that crap was retarded. Like, what like, that's crazy. So we went through court. The way that we went into court, like throughout court, like me and Millie, like we weren't sitting like next to each other, but there was times where we were like sitting kind of like close or whatever. And so like when we were about to get out of court, Millie was like, hey, I want to talk to you. So we had a conversation, and basically in that conversation, I basically told her like how I felt. Like, I'm like, this is how I felt when I came in. I heard different stuff, da da da. This is how I felt. Then when the guy came, this is the energy that I felt. Da da da. So, we went over that, and I was like, and I'm just, I don't like, somebody said it was gonna slap me, that this and that, da da da. So at the end of it, we talked about it. She said how she felt. She was like, I can understand how this came out and this and that. We had a conversation, woman to woman, and we basically was like, this shit is petty. It's not even that big of a deal. So let's just squash it. And that was that. So let's get to the cause. I don't want to talk about this to any of the cause. I just want to talk about the case. But I just wanted to say that we squashed it. We just was like, fuck it, it is what it is. And so I felt like it was, since I did publicly talk about it to y'all, then I wanted to make sure that I spoke about it to y'all, that it was that. So let's go to Cynthia. What do you think about the case? And what do you think about what was testified to? Unmute your mic if it's muted. Cynthia? Cynthia? Okay, I'm going to come back to you. Star?
Hey, Nick, I just got a question for you. Today, at any point in time, did you hear anything regarding Kelsey only having an argument with Megan in the car? And the reason why I'm asking that is because I'm hearing that Kelsey could not have possibly been the shooter because she never got out of the car. Or if she would have shot, the bullets would have been in the car. So I just wanted to know if you heard that today.
I'm gonna say what you just stated. Say it again, because it sounds like some things were incorrect in there. What? Say it again.
Did the fight between Megan and did you hear today that the fight between Megan and Kelsey only took place in the car? So
No,
pretty much, did
that's
the witness
that's,
Sean go
that's
ahead?
So today's testimony was mainly focused on the eyewitness. The eyewitness was talking to what happened when they were in his driveway. So when they were in his driveway, he said they were fighting inside and outside the car. He said when he observed, he seen two women fighting. They was like going at it. They was pulling out each other's hair. He said the women were like really like tussling, and they were pulling each other's hair out and all kind of stuff like that. And he specifically said it was the women who was doing the hair pulling and pulling out hair, but it was inside the car and outside the car.
Oh wow. So to that point, did defense ever show like any mug shots of Kelsey, like to prove like okay, she looked disheveled, like her hair was out of place, like anything of
Uh,
that nature?
so prior to today, when Kelsey testified and when they played her 80-minute audio, they showed photos of her hair being pulled out. But at that time, they tried to insinuate and say that it was Tori that beat her up and pulled out her hair. But according to this witness, he seen the two girls fighting, and the two girls were pulling each other's hair.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, what do you think like overall? Like it seems like everyone has been lying, like even this witness is kind of like shaky, you know what I mean, based on if the prosecutor is asking him or if defense is asking him. So like what do you think overall? Because this is the witness that I was waiting for to kind of like put everything together.
I think
But
that honestly, he was confused about a lot of things. Um, I don't know. He speaks English, so it's not like he doesn't understand, like this is his second language or something. He speaks English. So, but he like when they were asking him stuff, and then when the other one asked him stuff, he just seemed like he just was like at some point it just sounded like he was just saying whatever, and he sounded like he was confused about some things. And he explained that, during this same time while all of this was going on, he was trying to focus on his son and getting his son like, down on the floor and all that. So he seemed in certain parts very confused.
yeah, right. I mean, rightfully so. I can understand him want to get to his son. I don't know. I'm just so like, I don't even know where to go with this case. I don't know. I know Megan, she's definitely a victim, but it's just like every every witness from the state's witness to defense, everybody is just all over the place. Like this is the most chaotic thing I've ever witnessed.
Yes, it is definitely crazy. Thank you so much, Star, for coming on. I'm getting sleepy, so I'm gonna try to.
Thank you.
All right. All right. We're gonna go to Unforgettable.
Hey, Nick.
Hey.
Okay, I want to make it real quick. Let's go back to the gangster, Tory's gangster attorney. So they removed everybody from from the. They removed the jury, right?
Yes, when they were talking about this, the jury was not in there.
This is the highlight of today's show. I mean, because that witness kind of had me kind of thrown for a loop. I was trying to understand, but it by him not understanding Meg, or calling their names, that kind of threw me for a loop on what he's trying to convey about who had the gun and all that. But for Tory's attorney,
I was kind of disappointed that he kept saying the girl's this, the girl that, the girl was on the floor. I was kind of like, why isn't the defense or the prosecution making him describe which girl was which? They never did that. They never said like, okay, this girl was the girl that got shot. This girl was the girl that was fighting her. Like when they were all beaten, like was Megan beating up Kelsey, or was Kelsey and all three of them beating up? Like they never made him specify which girl was which. Like even saying like, what color did this one have on it? Like they never asked anything like that to make him specify which girl was which. He only would say the girl fell on the floor, the girl was fighting, the girl and all. Like he kept like saying that. The only time that he differentiated between the people was the shorter guy and the tall guy.
and another thing, like them redirecting and stuff, like when the defense will ask a question, then the prosecution will get back up and ask another question. I feel like they kind of confused him in the process too. Like they were saying, well, didn't you say this? Well, didn't you say that Kelsey
Wait,
was
I'm
the
gonna pause.
one?
I'm gonna pause. Somebody said it's their job to get Tori off, not get us additional details. If they're saying that Kelsey is the shooter and she was not, and she was the aggressor, it's important to state which girl is which. Is the shooter beating her up, or is the shooter getting beat up? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, who is the aggressive one? They didn't specify. Also, it's the prosecution's job to, you know, try to throw out whatever theory that the defense is doing. They both were talking. Neither one of them clarified which girl was which. Neither one. But go ahead.
And then for Tori's attorney to say he was gonna hit him in his choppers, is them lips. That was quite entertaining. You know,
Wait, what?
when Tori's attorney said he was gonna hit the prosecution, the guy in his
Oh,
lips.
yeah, no, he didn't say he was gonna hit him. He said something was gonna happen if he keep moving his lips.
Oh, mm.
He didn't say what was gonna happen, but we can allude that maybe he was talking about putting the pause on him. But he just said something was gonna happen if he kept moving his lips.
Smart man. You want to tell him, but he let him know. But other than that, neat. It's just that's the only thing that kind of confused me. Even when I watched other people give their commentary, it. I listened to yours and Millie's, but it's what I'm saying is it still was kind of confusing. And I'm pretty sure if it's confusing to some of us, think about how the jury feels.
Right. Because a lot of people in my chat, they said, I'm confused. I'm confused. I'm like, this is how the information was coming out. It was coming out about here, there, like that's how it came out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And did you say that they said they were talking about bringing EJ back?
No. He didn't say that he wanted to bring EJ back. He said that he wanted to use stuff that Tory has done to rebut what EJ said. So where EJ said that, he was not violent and stuff like that, they want to be able to prove that what EJ said, there is alternate information that proves that he is violent. He does have a record. He does, like that. And no, this was not said in front of the jury. When the lawyers was going back and forth, the jury wasn't in there. They have been excused.
Well, I'm gonna let somebody else on, so you can get to sleep. Thank you for clarifying that for me, though.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Tommy?
Hey, Nick.
Hey.
Listen, this whole case is a clown show. I just feel like the investigation was botched. The officers didn't do their jobs. They didn't ask the right questions. It's just a mess. And I'm trying to understand. Do we know, like, I want to say for a fact, but do we have like a clear understanding of where the gun was fired? Because I'm getting mixed reports on that. I just want you to clarify.
Mixed reports in the courtroom. It was like, it was back and forth.
Because I was getting reports that it was fired in the car, and I'm like, but on day one the officer said that it couldn't have been fired in the car because they did an examination in the car. They said that it would have a distinct smell and that they would have found evidence that a gun was fired in the car on day one, and that's what they
weren't talking to anybody who would have examined inside the car. They were just talking to an outside witness. So he's only going to say like what he's seen. He can't say like, was there a smell in the car? Wasn't. So each person, it builds up till you building the story where you hear from different people, but he didn't testify to that because he didn't get inside the car to know like if it was examined or, he just said where he heard the flashes from. And when he got out, that's when he seen more flashes by Tory. He said they both shot the gun.
Right. That's why those. I'm not trying to say that he doesn't know, but I was just saying what the other people were saying out there, and I would say that didn't make sense to me because of what the officer said on day one. So that's all I was trying to figure out. You know what I'm saying? But that's all I gotta say, Nick. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yusuf.
Hey, Nick.
Hey.
Hey, oh, I'm hearing the echo. Is that me? Oh, okay. Now I'm seeing a couple things right here. I just wanted to point this out. Like, of course, it's a media circus, and watching this, I don't really see no one's real interest lying in really getting answers and justice for the situation. It just seems to be a media circus. But a great coverage.
Prosecution is trying to get justice. They're trying to, where the defense is trying to paint the picture that it may be Kelsey. The prosecution is trying to like throw that out and be like, nah, well, it was Tory. Like, so the prosecution's trying to get justice.
Okay, thank you for that information. Because from the outside looking in, I wasn't able to fly on down and all of that. And I think you're doing a good job of holding it down with media coverage. And I'm glad that you and Mills, worked everything out. Two powerful Black women, y'all in my top 5, both of y'all. And so it's interesting how Kylie has nothing to say about this case and that no one's asking her anything either. Has there been any word of the Kardashians coming up?
No. And I feel like that doesn't make sense to me because if you guys are going to have EJ testify to what happened, it was mention of them being put out the house and Kylie put them out the house and Tory and Kelsey went back into the house after a period of time of, when they came back or whatever. Or no, Megan went in the house to get Tory, my bad. And then Kylie put them out like, y'all gotta go. Like Kylie kicked them the hell out of her house. So I felt like it was important for Kylie to testify that what happened when they went in the house. Because
Right.
EJ was outside. So when she went in the house, was she checking Tory? Was she saying, you better come on? Like what was the temperament when she went back in? Because she claimed that she was trying to go back for her slipper. But when she came, she really went to go back and get Tory. She was saying she lost her slipper, but she really was going back to get Tory. And then when they went back, Kylie put their ass out. And then that's when Tory came in the car. So what happened in the car? Who was at your house? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
Important, but you know, if EJ's testimony was important, I feel like Kylie Jenner's testimony should have also been important.
Absolutely, especially as it goes up to what erupted and all of that, especially that being her house. And everybody like to act like everybody's rise for the culture so much, but I'm sure if those were rock stars and then those two rappers were there when that happened, they would have been all up in it trying to testify for their friend. Now, my last question here, well, statement really. Megan lying about sleeping with Tory and lying to protect black men. I just want people to not get caught up in all the hoopla. Keep in mind and compartmentalize those things separately. She's not lying about being shot. And I feel like everybody's so quick to paint the black woman as not a victim when it's like a black woman in distress. It doesn't trigger the right response that I personally think enough. And so I just thought that was something worth mentioning. Her line, because everybody's like, "Oh, she lied. She lied." Yeah, about what though? Did she lie about, actually being a black woman who needs justice? Did she lie about actually being ready to stick up?
I'm gonna pause you. There
Uh-huh.
are some things that she omitted. She said she didn't remember. She never mentioned about her and Kelsey fighting. But this witness is clearly stating, like, no, I seen them fighting. The girls were fighting for sure,
Right.
like really duking it out. So there was a lot of things that I didn't remember, that she omitted. So
Right.
we can't say that she didn't,
I
because
know, but can I just say,
all three of them, Kelsey, Tori, Meg, they all
yeah.
conveniently didn't know. Well, Tori has not taken a stand, but
Why
they.
did she lie though, Neek? Why did she lie to protect black men like a lot of women do when they're scared and they're traumatized?
I don't believe that.
Because like I feel like if Kelsey would have shot her, she would have just outright said, you know what I'm saying, that she shot her. It wouldn't have been lying and scared to get another black man in trouble with George Floyd. She wouldn't have cared.
I don't believe. I don't believe that.
I don't know. I ain't there. Well, last question. Do you have anything that changed?
Believe, like, she said that was her reason for not saying it, because of
Mhm.
George Floyd. But when she talked to the detective, they asked her, when they talked to her on the first time, they asked her, what who was the shooter? And at that time, when she's away, she's on the phone with her team, she's on the phone with Desiree, she's on the phone with her attorneys. The first time they talked to her, they said, "Who shot you?" She said, "I don't want to make a statement because I don't want to make a false accusation." I don't
Mhm.
think I don't think that it was the whole, "Oh, because I want to, like, George Floyd and all that." I think that there was reason why she didn't want to say certain things. I don't believe that whole thing.
Well,
I
thanks for letting me up, boo. What was your main opinion that changed since your live coverage?
My main opinion about what?
Anything like about the case that you might have thought before you went in, and now that you're starting to see the case go out, now your opinion changing a little bit. Is anything changing from what you originally thought? Anything?
Um it's still up in the air. Like, well, I kind of, in my mind, I feel like Tory did it. Um,
Me too.
like, I feel like he did. Do I think that it was intentional? Like, oh, I'm trying to kill you, I'm trying to shoot you. Um, Before the trial, I didn't think that was the case, and as I hear it and the way that things are laid out, I still don't think that was the case. I feel like they was just being stupid. Like, I don't know what they was doing, but I don't think that it was like, oh, I'm trying to shoot her and kill her. It was just more like, which is still wrong, still bad. Like, why you pull out a gun anyways? You should have never pulled out a gun. But, him shooting at her, do I think that, like, there was like a struggle with the gun? When I heard the gunshots, I don't know that it was enough time to be like, okay, this person shot and then passed the gun to this person and then this person shot. Like, I feel like whoever shot had the gun. So if it was Kelsey who had the gun, or if it was Tori who had the gun, whoever shot had the gun. When he, like, as we hear information on the blogs, and it says, did the did the muzzle go off near the girl? I interpret that, like, when you hear it from the blogs, it sounds like, okay, the flash went off near Kelsey, so Kelsey shot. But if you think about it, Kelsey and Meg are outside the car. if somebody is shooting at them, the flash might, they might just be shooting, because the guy said he was shooting everywhere. He said when Tory shot, he was shooting everywhere. So if somebody is shooting, the flash is going towards the girl's direction. They both were standing like close. So I don't think that absolutely states that it was in fact Kelsey that shot, because of how it was said. Like when you think about it. What else was there? No, Nick, that was not right.
I think they're all lying, hoping for the best, Nick. They're just all lying, hoping for the best. Nobody wants to get in trouble, but none of them could control themselves.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me drop on down. It's such a good coverage, boo. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Nell, see?
Hi, Nick, how are you?
Hey, how are you? I'm doing well.
I'm doing okay. So I guess my biggest thing is you said that they removed the jury. When did they do that? Like what part did they do that?
They removed the jury when they wanted to talk about if Tory Lanez was to testify, what they can say and what they can't say, and how they wanted to establish that he was violent. When they did that, the jury was out. When they talked about the lawyers, like, what they were getting into it with, and when they were talking about like what evidence was like able to be used and what evidence wasn't, the jury wasn't out at that time either.
Okay. So I guess my question is, because I find it hard to believe, because from my understanding, the guy's story changed after he spoke to Tory Lanez lawyers, right?
So that was what the prosecution was trying to allude. They were trying to say that he didn't start mentioning the girl was the shooter until he talked to the defense. When the defense talked to him, he said, because they were like, when you called 911, did you say the girl was the shooter? When you talked to the detective, did you say the girl was the shooter? The defense then asked him questions to rebut that, and they said, were you ever asked who the shooter was? No. So it's like he said, I just talked to them very quickly. I was trying to get back to my son. My son was, to himself. When he did the 911 call, he just said that there was a violent attack. Like there's a violent attack going on. They asked him on 911 who was the attacker. They didn't ask him who the shooter was. So he didn't volunteer that information, because they didn't even ask him that information for him to say it in the first place. And the officer did not ask him that information either. So that's
Wow.
the defense was trying to, like, y'all keep trying to say that he didn't say nothing about the shooter until us, but did y'all ever ask him about the shooter? And they were like, well, nah, we never asked him about the shooter. Well, so then he didn't say who the shooter was. Y'all didn't ask him who the shooter was.
Wow. This case is just very, oh my God, it's so crazy. But I will say that, can we now conclude that Tory Lanez did shoot Megan because the guy said so?
The guy said both of them shot.
Okay, so he said that both of them shot. When did Megan hit the floor? Because if they both shot, they said that supposedly the first shot was supposed to be with the girls, which wouldn't make any sense because they're fighting outside the car. So if the first shot was supposedly by Kelsey, how did the gun get in her hand? When did she get it? She didn't come out the car with it, apparently. So I mean, how would she be able to shoot a gun? Like, I guess my biggest thing was,
well, they did make mention that, like, after Kelsey and Meg was fighting, she got back. Well, they said one of the girls went back to the passenger seat of the car or whatever, and then got back out, and then Tory got back out. So they was trying to insinuate, like, did she go get the gun? That's what they was trying to insinuate. But the guy kept saying, like, it all happened so fast, like it was happening, like, like back to back to back to back to back, like real quick.
So I guess that's just my
And he
my
never
thing.
saw a gun.
Okay. Okay. So he never saw a gun. He just saw the flashes. What I'm trying to say is, if he did distinguish that Tory Lanez, which is the SART guy, we all know that, shot multiple times and well, saw the flashes multiple times, and that's when Megan hit the floor, right?
After. She didn't immediately hit the floor, but he said after.
After the fires were shot.
When they
Mhm.
cried, he said like she didn't immediately hit the floor, like it was after.
Okay, but this is after he sees Tory Lanez with a gun, correct?
He never saw a gun,
I mean, the
but
flashes. I'm
when
sorry, the
he
flashes.
saw the flashes at this time, it appeared to be like from Tory, because he kept saying he didn't see a gun. Then he said Tory was shooting the gun like this. So it was like which
Because
one?
I didn't he refer to like him having some type of object? Like he probably could distinguish that it was a gun, but he knew that he was waving something, right?
That he, because they were like, well, didn't you say he had an object in his hand? And I don't remember if he said yes
Mm-hmm.
or not, because he was some stuff he didn't recall.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go back to my notes for that part, but it was some stuff that he didn't recall. So I don't remember if he said yes to that, but they did ask him like, didn't you say he had an object? And I don't remember him. I don't know that he said like yes, because it like he really got
Mm-hmm.
at that point. Like he was really confused.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I can kind of see them saying that, he didn't change his story until he got with the fence. But since you're saying that, oh well, y'all never asked him this question, y'all can't really say that, oh well, that's the reason why he didn't say anything, blah 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 blah. I guess my biggest thing is it,
And they didn't really do a very detailed conversation with him. Like they
mm,
talked to him very brief on the phone, like 3 to
wow,
5 minutes. You have a shooting, you have someone who said that they got shot, and you only hold the key witness who's seen it all on the phone for 3
for
minutes.
3 to 5 minutes, wow.
All the
Mm,
information that you need,
mm-hmm.
you go
Yeah.
over all that in 3 to 5 minutes?
Mm.
So
Yeah, I mean,
not
yeah.
enough it's not enough time for him to describe all of these things because y'all didn't even talk to him long enough. And
Mm.
when he talked to the officer at the scene, that was very quick too. And he said, I was just focused on getting back to my
His
son.
son, yeah.
Like they didn't talk to him that long.
Mm. Wow. That's crazy. And I guess the biggest thing for me is like, okay, they didn't talk to him very long. When he says the quote unquote gun went off closer to her, like it just, I guess, when did that happen? Because they were outside fighting.
So he
I
changed
don't understand that.
he changed what he said when he talked to the defense, and then he changed what he said when he talked to the prosecutor.
Mm,
When he talked to the defense asked him, who did the gun flash go off nearby? He said it was the girl. Where was Tori and the driver? He said they were in the car. He
mhm,
said that the flash went off and it was near the girl. He kept
mhm.
saying the girl. I'm like, damn, why don't y'all don't specify who the girl is?
Right, right, right.
Um, but we know that they're talking about Kelsey.
Mhm,
Um, so he said, it went off closer to the girl. So then when prosecution asked him
mhm.
about it, and because he said to the defense, Tory Lanez, when the fires first went off, he was in the car. Kelsey was outside of the car. The flash went
Right.
off near her. When the prosecution did a redirect and they asked him, okay, when you saw about this, you said that they all were out the car when the gun flashes went off. And then
Mhm.
he said, they was like, is that correct that they all were out of the car when you heard the first gun flashes? Like when the shots went off? And then he said, yes. So it was like,
Mm.
was Tori in the car and it was by Kelsey, or were they all out of the car
Outside. Okay, okay,
and it
okay,
was
okay.
just Tori shooting? So
God.
it was like a
Very confusing. Very
contradiction.
confusing. But see, I think that's, I mean, I think Tori has very good lawyers. I'll say that. That's number one.
Mhm.
Number two, I think also that they were trying to bring him on the stand to say that, hey, no, and definitely I did see her, like shoot, da 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 da.
Mhm.
But from my understanding, he also stated that he made it very clear that, like, no, he was shooting. Like they kept saying, like he kept going back to saying, like Tory shot. Yes, he said that the first thing went down, but
he kept going back and forth saying it was the girl, it was Tory, it was both of them, it was the girl, it was Tory, it was both of them. So it kept
oh gosh. Oh
yeah,
wow.
it kept the defense would ask a question, he would say this, and then the prosecution would ask. So it would go from this, that, then that, then it was like
they didn't prep him. Whoever the defense was, nobody prepped him for this. So one thing about it is attorneys, they're going to be able to switch questions and answer them in a different way for you. They know your answer. They know what they're trying to get you to say. So it seemed like he was so confused about it to where it's like, well, was
and
that what I really saw? Like he's questioning himself at
and
this
at the
point.
same time, keep in mind when he heard the gunshots, he was shaken up at that point.
Yeah.
They played the gunshot audio, and then after that, they was asking him like, "Okay, so was Tori out? Was this person like, what was the deal?" And he was like, he was kind of like, I was focused on my son at that point. Like I was trying to get my son on the ground. Like I was trying to, I was trying to get him on the ground. So like,
yeah. I mean, so it sounds like he's distraught. It sounds like they can easily switch his words and phrases around because he's still distraught about the situation, and that's over 2 years ago and going on 3 years ago. Clearly.
yes.
He obviously was not prepped for this. So every time, like you said, they'll ask him, he'll say one thing. Ask him, I mean, are they really gonna take this guy into consideration? Is
Do you
what
think
I'm
the
is what I'm
judge will
saying.
take his accounts into its consideration? I don't know, because also while he was testifying, he kept saying Tory was the loudest one. He was the most like
Aggressive, like rah rah, yeah.
Tory was he was the loudest one. He was the one I heard the loudest. He was, doing all this, and he was, like very aggressive, and he was, so he kept insinuating like Tory was like very aggressive, violent person.
Yeah.
And
I mean, but at the same time,
Tory
if
Lanez
there
was committing a torrent of violence or something, like he was like they was committing a torrent of violence or something like that. He said
aggressive, just aggressive.
it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, I don't know. All I feel is like Megan said it. Of course, people are gonna be like, yeah, whatever. Kelsey initially said it, went in there pleading the fifth, and like I said, I think that has something to do with 1501 and her affiliations with Torian and all that. And then this guy also said it. So all of them are saying that he shot her. You know what I'm saying? Yes, he's also saying that Kelsey shot her, which really doesn't make any sense because they were supposed to be fighting. And then I'm also thinking like, okay, if the gun flash went off, was
I
he
think
trying to shoot at them both?
from what I'm hearing, it doesn't really sound like they like actually shot her. From me listening in court, it doesn't really sound like they're saying that he actually shot her. It sounds like he was just like
He was shooting everywhere.
and like fragments hit her.
Ah, I see. Okay. So we can conclude that he was shooting in her vicinity. He probably didn't mean to shoot at her because he was waving the gun and
He
drunk at the same time.
said he was doing like this.
Yeah.
Where he was
And drunken at the same time. So he don't know where he aiming at. And that's why people need to stop playing with guns while they drinking. That's number one. So I think he intentionally shot her or shot towards her, probably just to scare her, but I don't really think that he thought that it was going to end up like this, if that makes sense. I do not. Maybe I'm thinking that he didn't intentionally do it, but to shoot over and over and over again,
five
can you
shots.
say that's a mistake?
Can
you say that's a mistake though? I don't know.
I
don't know
that any of the shots were a mistake. I think he like they purposely were shot. It just was what was like I don't I they what they it can't be mistaken as a mistake.
Yeah, 5 times, I don't know.
Like
Maybe one pow. Okay. But to continuously shoot, he was definitely doing it on purpose, whether he knew he was doing it or whether he didn't know he was didn't know he was doing it. People have to realize when you drink that much, sometimes you don't even like, you black out and your body's still going. It's not like you hit the floor and you're sleeping. No, you're still going. You just don't remember what happened. And I think a lot of what they were doing, they don't remember what happened. Because for them to both say that they weren't fighting, like, y'all didn't remember that y'all were fighting. But I mean, I can also see that too, because you can go in and out when you're drinking. So I I don't know. This case is like
Yeah.
a true circus.
No.
All right, go ahead. You have a good night, Nick.
All right. Latanya is gonna be the last person, and then we're gonna be out because I'm tired, y'all.
Hey, Nick.
Hey,
So, did they bring up about Meg's bodyguard that's missing at all?
no,
What? Okay, I realized no one's talking about the missing bodyguard. They made a whole big headline about it, that he's missing. He's a missing person. You would have thought that would have been mentioned, but nobody's talking about it today. Also, they were talking about the juror that got replaced. Was it the black guy that was coughing?
no.
Oh, okay, because they was talking about the juror that got replaced. But yeah, after hearing about what you said today in the reports of the people,
It
I
was.
really think that
I don't know if she was Hispanic. I like when she was walking out. I don't think she was a white lady. She was What was she? I don't know. She wasn't any of the black jurors.
good. I'm
It was
sorry,
a woman.
good.
She wasn't any of the black jurors.
Because it was talking about the lady too, that they said her thong was showing, and the guy that keeps coughing. I was like, damn, they gonna switch out these jurors and cause a mistrial. That's what they was trying to give to the public with the reports, with the switching the juror at the last minute. But what I was gonna say is, after listening to your report about what he saw, I'm thinking like Tory did shoot, but he let off all the bullets to stop Kelsey from killing that girl, because they said that she was getting beat up. So I'm thinking he purposely emptied the clip, not to hurt her, but to protect them, because it was getting reckless. Because they kept fighting each other and they wasn't stopping. That's just a theory, that he just let the clip empty because he didn't want them to hurt each other. But I don't think that deserves 22 years. That's my whole thing. You trying to send this man away for 22 years, and
Wait,
everybody's like, why he brought his son? Maybe because he probably really feel this is the last time I'm gonna see my son.
pause. Child, again, I'm tired, so I have to I have to recall what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
You said Kelsey was beating up Meg.
No, I said Meg was beating up Kelsey, and she probably was like mad. If you get in a fight, you kind of like go for the jugular. So she probably grabbed the gun, and he saw that, and
Who
he emptied the
probably
clip to
grabbed the gun?
stop her from hurting Meg.
Who
That's what I
said
think.
so? You're saying
Mm-hmm.
um Meg was beating up Kelsey.
Mm-hmm.
He grabbed the gun.
Mm-hmm.
In order to stop her, he decided, well, let me shoot out all these bullets.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he took the gun, like you're saying that he took the gun from her,
Mm-hmm.
and the gun wasn't enough to stop her. He then decided to say, I'm gonna now shoot out all the bullets just to empty the clip.
Because the guy said the first flash was between the girls. So I think that he realized Kelsey's getting reckless after the first bullet, because they said the flash happened between the two women. He was like, oh no, you being too serious right now. So he snatched it from her and emptied it in the air. And one of them ricocheted and hit Meg in her foot. But I really think
Stop.
if you have 5 bullets, she's a big target.
Pause. He took the gun. He's shooting the gun in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And the bullet that he shot in the air,
Mm-hmm.
Megan in the foot.
I'm going off what the witness said, because I'm not the witness. But the witness said that he was shooting in the air.
The witness
But
never said that. The people who quoted that are not quoting that. He never said that. He said Tory Lanez was shooting everywhere, and he did like this. He never said Tory Lanez was shooting in the air. He said Tory Lanez was shooting everywhere and he was shooting like this. And publications said that he didn't say that. They're going off of him saying he was shooting everywhere and he was going like this. And they're writing that the guy is saying he was shooting in the air, but he wasn't. That's not what he said.
That makes more sense.
Everywhere.
In the air, everywhere kind of sounds similar, but if he's shooting everywhere,
that's two different things. If I'm shooting up in the air to empty a clip and then the bullet come down, it miss your whole body and all of your whole body, it miss your whole body, and then it come around your butt, your legs and everything, and then it hits your foot.
Well, the way you motion the everywhere makes more sense because it did hit her in her foot. But she's a big target. So if he was purposely trying to hit her, 5 bullets, you would hit a 6-foot girl, 200 pounds. You're going to hit her. So I really do think he was trying to protect Kelsey and Meg by emptying the clip.
So he was shooting in the air.
Everywhere, you said.
Like the bullets coming down, hitting her in the head, the shoulder, the side, or something like it. It missed all of her body, her head, or everything. And it went around her body and then it hit her feet.
Not in the air. You said everywhere.
No,
so
but
if he's shooting everywhere and one of them ricochet and hit her, it sounds like he was purposely trying to empty the clip to stop Kelsey from literally going too far. That's what I was getting from everything that they're saying. So that's why I was like, that doesn't deserve 22 years because, I mean, that's just that. But nothing's connecting dots because even if he did shoot everywhere, they're like, they didn't find his DNA on the cartridge or the gun. So it's like how his fingerprints not even on the cartridge itself, if it's his gun, or on the gun itself. But I'm just thinking them girls were fighting for real, because she got a bald spot in one of the pictures, Kelsey. So she really probably got her hair ripped out and her chain was on the ground according to the cops. So it just sounds right when he said he was fighting for like several minutes. But
okay, and I just want to correct you. They never said that Tory was excluded, like he was absolutely DNA not found. They just said that they didn't have enough DNA to prove that the male DNA was his DNA, but they didn't say that it excluded him and it didn't say that he didn't shoot the gun. So I just wanted to clarify that part.
Thank you. Can't wait to see you tomorrow in the courthouse doing coverage. Black media, whoop whoop.
All right, peace out. All right, so that's all for today. Thank y'all for coming up. There was a lot that we heard today, and it was all over the place. Like I said, he said one thing, then he said another thing, and then it was just like it was crazy. So it sounds like there's a possibility that Tory may testify because they were like really focused on if he testifies, we want to be able to say this, this, and this. And when they were saying those things, Tory's facial expression, like he was like, like when they were like, we want to talk about the rap lyrics, we want to talk about August Alsina, we want to talk about this. Like if we're to testify him, we're going to talk about this. And the whole time that they're saying that, Tory Lanez is like giving expressions like, so it's like, are you gonna testify? I mean, I kind of took that as like because if he don't have no intention to testify, like why do you care what they want to ask you if you testify? Because those questions would only be relevant if Tory was the person to testify. So if he doesn't have plans on testifying, because if I'm not testifying, like I don't even care what you want to talk about, because I'm not even testifying for you to ask me those questions, So I found that interesting because he was like, really like, like doing stuff like that. So we shall see. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see y'all next time.